And just to let you all know, today's session will be recorded. So if you guys would like to view a recording of this, you can go to www.pomonachamber.org, and it will be under our media website. I did want to point out to those of you who are attending, as you see on the agenda, after each presenter, we will allow and open up for questions. So if you all have any questions, you can go ahead and either one, raise your hand, or number two, put it in the chat, and you'll be called upon as soon as the section is done completing their presentation. And I do ask that if you guys are either attendees or presenters to put your microphones on mute. Okay, good morning, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Monique Manzanares. I'm the President and CEO of the Pomona Chamber of Commerce. And today, along with Pomona's Promise Economic Development Committee, the City of Pomona, and the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles, we will be providing to you some wonderful information. So we'll go ahead and get started at this time. I do want to go over a few housekeeping tips. If you all that are attending, if you can please put your microphones on mute and also disable your camera, that would be wonderful. We will be fielding questions after each presenter is done. So if you'd like to ask any questions, go ahead and you can, number one, put it in the chat bubble, or after the presenter is done, you can just enable your screen and wave your hand and wait to be called on. At this time, I'd like to pass it over to Ms. Benita DeFrank from the City of Pomona.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Benita DeFrank. I'm the Neighborhood Services Director for the City of Pomona. And part of my responsibilities as within Neighborhood Services is overseeing the Housing Authority. And so I just want to give you a little bit of background of why we decided to work with the Chamber, to collaborate with the Chamber to be able to bring this landlord workshop. There's been since COVID, a lot of what we hear here at City Hall is a lot of issues surrounding housing, in particular rental housing. And a lot of what we were hearing was from the tenants. And what we realized is we didn't really have an organized way to reach out to landlords. And so in that discovery, we decided to reach out to, through number one, Pomona's Promise. There's an economic development committee that works on different areas within the city, and housing being one of them as an economic driver. And then the chamber. And so we all came together and decided that the best way to move forward was to engage landlords and to provide a platform to not only give information, but to find an opportunity to work together as we move forward. So today on our agenda, you're going to see, basically it's broken up into three different areas. We have a legislative update, and Dan will be bringing you information about what's going on pertaining to legislation in California and rental housing. I have two of my staff members here who are going to talk about, there's some financial rental assistance program as well as business assistance program that the city is sponsoring to help out with those who may not be able to make rental payments. And for those who have been, due to COVID, have been, their business has been affected. And then we're going to end talking about how do we build a network moving forward. And this is so important to us because we realize, you know, in the city of Pomona, we have 40,000 units of residential housing. And of those, 50% are rental. So the stake that you have in our community as landlords is so important, and we want to make sure that we're providing information as it becomes available to you as in this fast-moving information time, but also that we have a format to listen to some of your concerns, and so that moving forward we'll have a way to collaborate as we move into hopefully a post-COVID world, but that'll be some time coming. So I'd like to ask Daniel to introduce himself and to give us our legislative update. Thanks, Daniel.
Great. Well, thank you for that, Benita. And it's really a pleasure to be here. And I just want to say that forums like this are just so important. It's very important that communities involve all the stakeholders involved. We have a housing crisis in California made much worse by this pandemic. And I know and I see it every day in my working life, owners and renters working together to help solve these housing issues. So thank you, and I applaud the City of Pomona for bringing this forum together and making this available to rental property owners in the city. Just a quick background, I've been the executive director of the Apartment Association of Greater LA now for 3 years. This is very much a second career for me. I like to call it my encore career. I'm a CPA by training, started out at Ernst & Young, the public accounting firm, and went from there to the CFO of a number of different companies, public, private, and startup companies. Spent most of my career in the network radio industry as the chief financial officer for Premier Radio Networks, where syndicated shows like Ryan Seacrest and Rush Limbaugh, Steve Harvey, Sean Hannity, Fox Sports Radio, Jim Rome, all the major radio shows. Worked with those very, very incredible talented people and negotiated all their contracts, paid them, and while I was paying them, I was very much liked by them. I left Premier Radio Networks and went to work ultimately for the owner of the Beverly Hills Hilton, and I was there for 3.5 years as his CFO, where we built the Waldorf Astoria at the corner of Wilshire and Santa Monica. Also, somewhere along the way, I was a planning commissioner for the city of Beverly Hills and also chaired that commission. So I've kind of been on both sides of the table, the developer side and also the one handing out the entitlements. So broad-based experience. And this opportunity came up a few years ago. A friend of mine is on the board of directors of the Apartment Association, and they were looking for some leadership and asked me if I'd be interested. And I thought, why not? My wife and I own a couple of rental properties ourselves, and I've always been very passionate about the issues being faced by landlords, and decided to come on board, and never expecting to stay 3 years, let alone renewing my contract for another 3 years. But here I am, and I've really been enjoying this. So I wanted to update you on some new regulations that you may or may not be aware of, and also give you some information on where you can get resources to help you in your daily lives of managing rental properties. It's really become, if you haven't realized it yet, it's very much a highly regulated industry today. It's not for the faint of heart. It's no longer a passive investment that you make in rental property and show up every month to collect your rent. There's a lot of regulations, a lot of rules and laws that you need to follow today. And if you don't follow them correctly, you can find yourself in trouble, and that trouble can be very, very expensive to you. And so you really need to be careful. You really need to have resources, unless you have a law degree or you are a real estate professional practicing this 7 days a week. You can really find yourself in some very challenging times. So one of the things I'm going to encourage you at the end of my presentation is to consider joining an apartment association, whether it's ours or anyone else's. It's just very important that you are getting the updated information on these regulations, that you have some outreach to a organization that can help you with any questions that you may have. So why don't you go to the next slide? Or am I going to the next slide? Okay, you got it. Great. So I'm going to start out talking a little bit about the federal government. You may have heard of the CARES Act, where some financial relief was provided to many of us. There are these payment protection plan loans, these EIDL loans that were offered to businesses, in addition to supplements offered to people receiving unemployment. Under the CARES Act, however, you need to be aware that if you have Section 8 tenants that you're dealing with, they have eviction protections. Also, if you have a federally backed mortgage, typically on a 4-unit or less building, either through Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, those would also protect the tenants in those buildings from eviction. Go back to that original slide. I think you advanced ahead. Also, recently, the Centers for Disease Control came out with an eviction moratorium for the next 4 months through December 31st. And that does not preempt, however, the state law that we have here in California, which is Assembly Bill 3088, which is more restrictive than this federal law. So you don't really have to be concerned with that. And then for the County of LA, we're looking at some new regulations that the county is proposing to have a right of first refusal. And that would be if you try to sell your property, you would need to offer that to a nonprofit organization, to the county itself, or to the tenants in your building before you're able to sell that. And there's a number of cities throughout California that have passed similar laws to this. Now, Pomona is an incorporated area, so this would probably only apply to unincorporated areas, but as we've seen recently, the county has been trying to assert jurisdiction on even incorporated cities. And then the county has just passed rent control, and for unincorporated areas, there's now a new rental registration. And just hang on a sec, somebody just walked into my office. I'm sorry about that. All right, I'm back. So you can go to the next slide. And I'm quickly going through these things just in the interest of time. And of course, I will stick around as long as necessary to answer any questions. A very interesting legislative session this year in Sacramento, very much impacted by COVID. A couple of state senators came down with COVID. They had to shut down the legislative session. It was impossible to lobby our elected officials this year in person. A lot of the meetings took place over Zoom or WebEx or over the phone. And because of the shortened session, only the highest priority bills were able to get passed. And so a lot of things were left on the table. Fortunately, a lot of those things were some really bad ideas that would have impacted landlords. But there were several items that did get passed. One of them is Senate Bill 1079, which limits the amount of foreclosed single-family homes a single buyer can buy to just 3. Many of you may remember during the Great Recession in 2008, groups like Blackstone came in and bought up tons of property, particularly I remember in the city of Stockton, and remodeled those homes and turned them into much higher priced rentals. So the state legislature wanted to prevent that from happening again. And so it's limiting the purchase of foreclosed single family homes to just 3. Senate Bill 1190 basically allows tenants to break a lease if they're a victim of domestic violence. Even if they're a victim of threatened domestic violence, tenants under Senate Bill 1190 are able to ask to get out of their leases. And so you need to be aware of that. And then Senate Bill 1157, in order to assist tenants with possibly being able to buy properties on their own, the Senate or the legislature passed this, which requires owners under certain circumstances to report on-time rent payments to the various credit bureaus. And you can go to the next slide. Got it. Next slide.
Okay, there's a delay, so I'm just.
Yeah, okay. Same thing in Zoom. You know, this
Yeah,
technology has not been perfected yet.
no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Let me.
Well, I could start talking about it anyway.
Oh, here we go.
The big, you passed it twice. You passed, got to go back a couple of slides. Yep. Next one.
This one?
There it is. Perfect. All right. This was what I'll call the big kahuna that got passed this year. Assembly Bill 3088, signed by the governor at midnight on August 31st of this year, which was the absolute last date of the legislative session. And what this bill basically does is it provides protection to tenants who have been adversely impacted by COVID-19. Adversely impacted meaning that they've lost a job or they've lost work hours or been inflicted by the coronavirus or may have to stay home to care for a child who is not going to school. And basically it divides tenants, or it divides missed rent payments up into two buckets. One is called the protected period. So if a tenant did not pay all of the rent that was due between March 1st and August 31st of this year, what was required, and hopefully any of you that found yourself in this situation, was required that the landlord provide the tenant with a written notice of their rights under Assembly Bill 3088 by September 30th. Now, there's no penalties in the law if you fail to provide your tenants with that notice, but it could come to affect you, I guess, and I'm not a lawyer, again, I'm a recovering CPA, but it could come to affect you if you eventually do go into court to try to collect that debt. Also, there's a form new notice, which is a 15-day notice that you'd be required to give your tenant, and then within 15 days, the tenant is supposed to give you back a signed declaration under penalty of perjury listing what COVID-19 impacts they suffered. And that would basically protect the tenant at that point from being evicted. And then there's what's called the transitional period. It's basically the same process during the transitional period, and that's from September 1st to the expiration of Assembly Bill 3088 on January 31st, 2021. Same series of forms. You give tenant a notice of their rights. If they didn't make a payment, you'd give them a 15-day notice, and then the tenant's required to give you back a declaration. The only difference with this period is that the tenant is required to pay 25% of the rent due for these 5 months. It doesn't have to be paid every month. It just needs to be paid on or before January 31st. And if the tenant complies with that, they give you the signed affidavit back and make the 25% rent payment by January 31st, then they would be protected from eviction. Now, what happens to all this rent debt that's built up, assuming the tenant has given you the signed declaration and has complied with Assembly Bill 3088, and you've complied with Assembly Bill 3088, that rent debt then turns into consumer debt. So it's not a basis for eviction of the tenant. And that consumer debt needs to be collected between, I believe, March 1st of 2021 and March 31st of 2022. So tenants are given about 13 months to repay that debt. Now, LA County has a eviction moratorium, and in fact, the county had tried to extend their eviction moratorium from September 30th through November 30th. And unfortunately, under Assembly Bill 3088, they're not allowed to do that to protect tenants from evictions for non-payment. However, the county is asserting authority on what's called a no-fault eviction. So that would be for an owner move-in or a substantial remodel to evict a tenant. So no-fault evictions are not permitted according to the county law. And the county is asserting its eviction, that aspect of its eviction moratorium, to incorporated cities in addition to unincorporated areas of the county. What I want to impress upon you with all of this, and with the CDC order, which the governor tells us does not apply here, with the State Assembly Bill 3088, with the LA County's eviction moratorium kind of getting in the middle of all this. It's very important, if those of you out there have uncollected rent during this COVID period from March 1st on up into the present, there's probably a lot of money at stake. There might be a lot of missed rent that you haven't received. And it's just very, very important that you seek legal advice for this. This is not a situation where you need to do it yourself. You need to have competent legal advice. There's still a lot of debate going on between whether the county's law applies or Assembly Bill 3088 applies. And so I've heard differing opinions on it. So it's just, again, it's important to seek legal advice. I will tell you, under the county's eviction moratorium, and they are asserting jurisdiction here with incorporated areas. I don't know whether the city of Pomona agrees with it. There's some cities within the county of LA that don't agree with it. Others are accepting it, but you're not allowed to charge interest or late fees. And there's also a freeze on rent increases. So you just need to be aware of that. And again, the county's rent freeze or eviction moratorium expires on November 30th. And it's possible, I believe the county is like the city of LA, where this rent increase extends at least 1 year past the expiration of the eviction moratorium. So just be aware of that. And you can go to the next slide. There you go. Assembly Bill 3088 also attempted to provide some sort of relief to rental property owners, but unfortunately there's no guaranteed loan forbearance in the law. The state does not govern federally regulated banks. What it was able to do is it does require the banks to provide rental property owners a lot more information than they would normally get if a request for a loan forbearance was denied. So those of you who are challenged right now due to uncollected rent and having trouble meeting some of your financial obligations, there always is that option to go to your bank to get a loan forbearance. They're not always the cheapest route to go, and it could impact your credit, but it is an option, and I know some of our members are definitely looking into that. And you can go to the next slide. Now here I'm drudging up the past a little bit. This was a law that became effective January 1st, 2019, but you need to be aware of it. What this law requires is we call it the balcony inspection law, but it requires inspection of what's termed an elevated exterior element. And you have to have these parts of your building inspected by January 1st, 2025. And what an elevated exterior element means is it means a balcony, but it's really any structure made out of wood that stands 3 feet or more above the ground and extends outside of the 4 walls of your building. So it could be a walkway, an external staircase, a balcony, and things like that. So you need to have those things inspected by January 1st, 2025. And that's the reason I like to bring it up, because I like to remind people it's not on a lot of people's radars right now, but it's required by state law. It's something that came out of a law that got passed in Berkeley after a balcony at a house failed while a party was going on, and dozens of people got injured because that balcony failed. So again, make sure you get your exterior elements inspected. For me, in case you're curious, I have a 4-unit building with 4 balconies, and the price for the inspection was about $2,500. So these things aren't cheap. The problem with it is the person who comes out to do the inspection under state law is not allowed to do the repairs. And so our association had proposed a bill for this year, but because of COVID, we couldn't move it forward, but we're going to bring it back next year. That we're going to make a fix to this bill so the inspector can actually come out and do the repairs to your elevated exterior elements. And then finally, you can go to the next slide. You can go one back. Sorry to do this, but this is my salacious plug for joining an apartment association, just to make sure you keep up to date and One of the major things that we do is we are advocates. We do employ Sacramento lobbyists and things like that. We work with local city councils on these things, and we provide tons of information on updated laws, proper management of your rental property. It's our goal to elevate rental property owners to make sure that they're working professionally and that they don't find themselves in a trouble by breaking some kind of rule or regulation. So definitely consider it. For the price of dinner and a nice bottle of wine, you could be a member of our association for a year. But like I said, there's others out there, so definitely consider making the investment in an apartment association. And with that, you can go to the next slide, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you so much, Dan, for your presentation. That was a great presentation. I do have right now in the chat somebody asking if your presentation, the slides will be available. Yes, they will be. And if you can just go ahead and put your email, we'll be glad to get that out to you so that way you can have a printed copy.
Yeah, and if I could just ask you, when you send them out, if you could just send them out as a PDF.
Right, okay.
I appreciate that. And then there is an exhibit that comes with the slides on Assembly Bill 1482, which is the statewide rent control law that was passed last year. That's chock full of information if you guys want to know about the statewide rent control law, which does apply to a lot of properties in Pomona.
Very good, very good. Thank you, Dan. Do we have any other questions? Okay, I see in the chat, but if you guys could just put in the chat, that would be great. So that way I know who has a question. You guys can put it in there and we'll go ahead and enable your audio. So I don't see any more. Again, we will go ahead and send this out to you all who are requesting the PDF version. I also want to remind you guys that we will be putting this on our website and you guys will be able to view the presentation in its entirety. Christine, did you have a question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want clarification on the AB 3088 pertaining to eviction and having to give renters 15-day written notice after February 1st. So my question pertains to the fact that my tenant is also a Section 8, I guess, recipient. So does that mean that, given my contract with Section 8, I normally need to give her 90 days advance notice?
Right.
So does that mean that the 15-day is included in the 90 days? So
no, you'd have to give the 90 days notice in that case for Section 8 tenant.
So I guess the question is, could I give the notice in advance so that it would not violate the 90-day prior notice and would not violate the February 1st, I guess, date?
Well, it's a March 1st date I think you're talking about. I guess I'm not sure what your question is. Are you asking which notice to give?
No, I mean, like in terms of, looking at your AB 3088 slide, you said that we need to give 15 days written notice.
Right, if a tenant does not pay if the tenant is not paid rent.
Yeah, so I mean, under the normal circumstances, if I were to, for example, send a notice to her that, 90 days, effective, let's say February 2nd, I want to terminate my lease with Section 8 and her, I would start doing it, no later than next month.
Mm-hmm.
So that should also cover.
What would your reason be for terminating her in 90 days?
Well, I've been doing, I guess, a favor for my tenant for the past 4 years. I have a 2-bedroom, but she only qualified for 1. Okay. And I've been doing that, basically as a favor.
Has she been paying,
and to help her out.
Has she been paying her rent? Has she been complying?
No, she has not paid her rent, for May and June. So she's 2 months behind. Trying to work on that, but she has a pattern of, I guess, not paying in the past, but I've been trying to work with her.
Okay.
But I don't think, I can afford to do that, going forward, just because I was under the impression that since she's a Section 8 tenant, if she's unemployed temporarily for 2 months, that, somehow, her portion of Section 8 would, decrease. But obviously that didn't happen because I guess COVID is a special situation. So
As I mentioned, under the CARES Act, Section 8 tenants would be protected from eviction. So you need to be careful with that. And, again, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not sure where, if there are conflicts between the state law and federal law. Usually federal law takes precedence. So I would think that your tenant would be protected either way. And I'm not sure what the requirements are under Section 8 because I don't deal with Section 8 quite a lot. But I'm not sure what the requirements are for you to notify your tenant that's not paying, and then how the whole CARES Act comes into play. But tenants under Section 8, as I mentioned, are protected from eviction under the CARES Act.
At this time, you, Dan and Christine, I'm sorry to cut you guys off, but I do feel like this would be a conversation that could be had outside of this forum. So Christine, I have your information. I would love to connect you maybe with some resources. We do have some resources for attorneys. And then also Dan's information is still on the screen. If you'd like to have another conversation with him after the forum, you can go ahead and contact him. But we do thank you for your questions. But at this time, I would like to go ahead and move forward.
Thank you for that question, though.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, I guess like I know like Dan is not with Section 8, so I want to participate today because I want to have the ability to contact somebody from Section 8 so that they could address my question. And of course, I plan to comply with CARES Act and Section 8's policy. But as soon as I have the ability or the rights to send notice, I want to make sure that I understand the rules. And it's kind of very hard for me to contact somebody at Section 8 because people don't answer the phone, and you guys don't have an electronic like account for me to see who the the tenant's worker is. So it's very hard for me to try to communicate.
Christine,
would you
this
be
is
able to
George
give me a
Marcano.
contact person at Section 8?
Hello? Can you hear
Yes.
me, Christine? This is George with the Housing Authority. I sent you a private message with my phone number. Can you give me a call?
Okay.
Concern?
Yeah, I see it. Okay. Yeah, I tried to contact you earlier, but I didn't get a return call.
Okay. Well,
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
give me a call
so
when you
much
have a
again,
chance. Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and move forward. Do we have any other questions for Dan? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move to the next presentation. Dan, did you want me to show the rest of the slides that you had on this deck, or?
No. I just provided in case people ask me about Assembly Bill 1482, so not necessary.
Benita, would you like to go ahead and announce the next presentations?
Sure. So next we have Danielle Hawley and Beverly Johnson from the City of Pomona, and they're going to provide the city, as a result of the CARES Act, has received federal dollars through HUD, and in working with our city council, they felt that two areas of assistance were most needed in using the dollars that we were given. One of them being business assistance, and that's working with micro enterprise, and then housing assistance. So those were that was the direction we were given from City Council to move forward. And both of these staff members are going to give an overview of the programs so that you as landlords will know how what the assistance is being provided, and that how the information can be accessed for your tenants. Go ahead, Danielle or Beverly, who's ever first.
Danielle?
Beverly, I'm going to let you go first since the screen is talking about business assistance. Mute.
Hold on, let me see if I
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Monique. Good evening, everyone. My name is Beverly Johnson, and I'm the Housing Services Manager for the City of Pomona. As Benita and Monique mentioned, there are several sources of funds available to assist in the efforts to address COVID, the negative impacts of COVID. One being business assistance. Previously, the city, implemented round one of a business assistance program, whereby 43 businesses were assisted. On October the 26th, we're looking to implement the second round of business assistance. And I'll just provide a brief overview of that program. The application period will begin October 26th through November 13th. And it's primarily geared towards micro enterprise assistance businesses. Those are businesses with 5 or fewer employees. Those businesses must be located in the city of Pomona, must be have a physical location, a bricks and mortar building, must have been in operation for at least 2 years, must have a valid business license, have no outstanding federal state liens against the business, must meet HUD's criteria to be benefit low to moderate income persons, that being either employing low income persons or that the owner themselves are low to moderate income. Must have a verifiable loss due to COVID, and that's key here. All of the federal funds made available are to address the negative impacts of COVID. So we have to ensure that we meet that criteria. And must not have received other CARES Act funding from other sources. And that's just a brief overview of the program. I'm sure you guys have questions. Danielle will talk a bit more about rental assistance and how it can help the landlords. But if there are businesses on the call that have questions, I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, let's see if we have any questions. It says, what if this is coming from Leo, it says, what if your business is still suffering, but got the first round? Is there any relief or any help for that?
Currently, at this time, the funding that is available is CARES Act funding. So if you received it in the past, unfortunately, the HUD considers that a duplication of benefit, so you wouldn't be able to receive additional assistance with the same pot of CARES Act funding.
Okay. Okay, and I know that's been a continuous question that I've actually fielded here in the office, is there have been numerous businesses, such as Leo, that said, I received funding before, I've exhausted those funds, and I still need assistance. Do I qualify? So the question the answer would be no, because it's a duplication. I'm sorry, what did you say again? It was a duplication of what?
Duplication of benefit. All of the sources are CARES Act funding. So if you received a grant via the county, if they were utilizing CARES Act funds, via Small Business Administration, if they were utilizing CARES Act funds, you can't duplicate the benefit by receiving CARES Act funds multiple times.
Understood. Thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions? I don't see anything in the chat, but if anybody else has any questions, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. And if you'd like to enable your camera as well. We just had something come in from the chat. Stephanie Campbell, she says, where can one access a summary of information that you, Beverly Johnson, just presented? Is it on the Chamber website? So basically the form, I believe. Stephanie, are you there? Would you like to go ahead and enable your microphone?
Yes, Stephanie. Stephanie,
Hey,
all
hi.
of the information. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Oh, I just wanted to clarify my question if it wasn't clear. But Beverly, what you just gave a very succinct presentation on the requirements for businesses
Yes.
to apply for this, and I'd just love to know if there's like a paper that has these like bullet points that's available for distribution.
I can forward it to you, Stephanie, but it also will be available beginning Monday on the city's website.
On the city website, great.
Beginning Monday.
I also have a copy,
Okay.
Stephanie. I also have a copy.
Okay.
If Beverly says that it's okay, I can go ahead and just send that out to you.
Absolutely, Monique. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
sure.
That would be very helpful. Thank you, both of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for attending. Let's see, I don't see any more questions coming in. I don't see anybody's hand raised or their microphone on. So Danielle, if you could like to go ahead and take over. And you're going to be showing a presentation, correct, Danielle?
Yes, I am. I'm having.
I believe you have to go to the where it says present right here, the top right, where it's like kind of purple, where the toolbar is purple next to the three dots. It says present, and it should throw you into presentation mode. There we go.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry about that. So welcome. I'm so excited on behalf of the city to talk to you a little bit about our upcoming rental assistance program. Our rental assistance program is scheduled to launch at the same time as Beverly spoke about our business assistance program launching on Monday, October 26th. And we're very excited about this. It will start on October 26th and it will last indefinitely until we exhaust all of the funds. So we will be working with our applicants on a first come, first served basis. And so the good thing about the program this round is that the city has made the decision to contract with 4 community agencies that are very engaged and excited in helping us reach out to the community and help our residents to actually complete their applications and to help the city with the application processing as well. And so the agencies we've selected through a competitive process were Catholic Charities, Inland Valley Hope Partners, Pomona Economic Opportunity Center, or PEOC, and Tri-City. So those are the 4 agencies that will be either assisting clients or residents through the telephone or in person at their location. Residents are also able to complete their application online, and they will be assigned to one of the one of the agencies to assist them with making sure that their application is complete and also making sure that all of the required documentation is collected. So one of the things that we decided to do with this program is that the city felt that it was extremely important to help as many individuals as possible. So with doing that, we decided to align our rental assistance program to the AB 3088 eviction protection that Dan so affectionately labeled the big kahuna in protections. And so with that, we're looking to help residents with paying 25% of their rent between the months of September through January. And so we would pay up to 25%. So if residents have not paid their September rent, then we would be, or October rent, we would be able to assist them with all 5 months of rent. However, if they have paid those 2 months rent, we would pay 25% of those outstanding months between September until January. As Dan also talked about, there is another requirement besides paying the 25% that our tenants are also required to file this COVID-19 or hardship declaration with their landlords. We are working with the agencies to help us make sure that every tenant that receives assistance also files this form. And so the agencies will be responsible for ensuring that the form is filed so that we've covered both pieces of that requirement. So if we look at how a tenant might apply for rental assistance, we've made it very simple. For those residents who do not want to leave home during this crisis, they can apply online as they did before, as residents did before. Additionally, for those residents that need some assistance with the application process, they are able to call these 4 agencies, one of the 4 agencies directly, or to visit the agencies. So on the upcoming flyer that will be released regarding the rental assistance program, it will have the agency's contact information and also the agency's hours of support hours for application processing. So I wanted to just cover a few things that landlords should be aware of during this process. So as we said, tenants will be applying for the assistance. However, the funds will be paid to landlords. And so there's a responsibility on both the tenants and the landlords in this rental assistance process. And so please expect as landlords that one of the 4 agencies staff may be contacting you in order to get additional information from you, and also to get some required forms for you to complete and to sign on behalf of yourself as the landlord and on behalf of the tenant as well. And so some of the documentation you might be expecting to see would be a basic landlord information form that we'll send out after this presentation today. A basic landlord information form that wants to collect your information, the tenant information. It's asking what rent is due and outstanding for that particular tenant. And there's also some other questions and certifications that are included as well. We also would like the landlord to provide the executed lease agreement, just to ensure that the lease agreements we're getting are official. One of the requirements of receiving this fund in calculating if they qualify as far as income levels go is how many people are in that household or the household size. And when we look at that household size, we're looking at how many people are actually included on the lease agreement. And so it's very important that we get that official lease agreement from the landlord. And then we also need a W-9 and a landlord lease addendum form as well, which basically is just an agreement that the landlord is receiving payment from the city. We will provide the exact amount during our final review and calculations, and so that we can make everything official. So one of the things I wanted to just mention as far as funding, we have, Beverly spoke of the various funding sources, and the funding source that we'll be using for this program is from our U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or we more affectionately call them HUD. And the funding source is a Community Development Block Grant. And we currently have allocated $1.2 million. And we're looking forward to getting these funds out into the community as quickly as possible. There are some eligibility requirements for the household or the individual or family applying, as well as unit eligibility. So the first thing is very important, because these funds that we're using are COVID funds, so to speak. First of all, that household has to have a COVID-19 justification. A reason that they lost income, a reason that they cannot work or they were laid off, whatever the reason is, it has to be directly attributable to COVID-19. The second thing is, with the household eligibility, we are targeting for this round of funding very low income, targeting the 30% area median income. And I'll go over the chart for that in just a second. And the reason we decided to target the 30% AMI is because when we look at the data and the information that we received from the last round of funding, as well as the information or data we received from the County of Los Angeles rental assistance program, the majority of the households fell into this 30% AMI. And these are the people that are really hurting the most with the lowest income. The last but not least, the unit also has to be eligible in order to receive this funding. So what we're looking at is if we have units, tenants in units that apply, and their units were built prior to 1978, and they also have an occupant in their household that's less than 6 years old, then this is also going to require a lead inspection. And this is a federal requirement for using these funds. So that is something that we'll be working with. If we have individuals in units that do not apply, we do have a secondary funding source called the Pomona Compassion Funds, which includes money that's primarily donation-based. And we'll be utilizing those funds to supplement individuals or households that maybe don't meet this requirement and need that assistance. Nevertheless, if we're using donations, we're able to, to help that family, even though they don't meet this requirement. So if we look at the 30% area median income, I wanted to just break this down for anyone that's not familiar with this. So these are the types of income levels we're looking at with 30%, if you notice, very low. It ranges based on the household size, and we're looking at income levels from $23,700 for a household size of 1, all the way to $44,650 for a household size of 8. So this is not a lot of money. And so these are the individuals we're targeting, and individuals that we have determined are having the most difficult time paying their rent right now. So with that said, I wanted to open it up for question and answers.
All right, so if you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and put it in the chat box that you have a question, or at this time you guys can go ahead and disable your microphone and your video if you'd like. I see that, Mark Warren, you have disabled your audio. Do you have a question for us? Are you there, Mark? Okay, while we're waiting for, oh, okay, he disabled his audio. So I just, I wanted to point out that Beverly and Daniela's contact information is here on the screen. So if you guys like to reach out to them, actually Daniela, if you'd like to reach out to her, her information is there. Yolanda does have a question. She says, how long does it take to get the check once they apply? You're up next.
Yolanda, I appreciate that question. Thank you so much. It's actually a very difficult question to answer. It actually depends on how long it takes to work with the agencies to make sure that an application is complete. And in addition to that, making sure that we have all of the required documentation as well. And so once the city receives that application back from the agencies, we are working on a goal of trying to get the funding out to the agencies within 30 days. So that is a goal, I have to say, but it gives you some idea of what we're working with. I think one of the most difficult things is that often when you work on programs like this, it's not as if a person applies and then they complete the application all of the time and they have everything submitted and then we can just quickly move forward. Often there's quite a bit of going back and forth, gaining a little bit more understanding. Even sometimes the process of working with the tenant in order to connect with the landlord can take time. And so we're hoping that the agencies can help us facilitate that process.
Very good. I hope that answered your question, Yolanda. Right now, I'd like to go to Mark Warren. Do you have a question, Mark?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Perfect. You're good.
Okay, good. But my question is, you said you're going to pay 25% of the rent that was due in September. I didn't understand exactly what the time frame for payment would be. Could you clarify that?
So when an applicant applies for rental assistance under this program, we will be looking at their outstanding rent from the months of September to January. So obviously from November to January would be outstanding. We would look at their income documentations to see, do they have the ability to pay the rent? So let's just say we had an applicant who has no ability to pay their rent from the months of September to January. We would then, if they are, meet all other criteria, we would then pay 25% of their rent for September, 25 for October, 25 for November, and so forth till January. So that the reason for that is so that we meet the AB 3088 qualifications and requirements that Dan spoke of, so that we can keep as many individuals as possible from being evicted.
So the fact that a tenant has not paid anything for June, July, or August, or September yet, 4 months behind, that's just, we're not even going to consider that. We're just going from September and we're moving forward.
Yes, because as Dan mentioned, they cannot be evicted for that past rent. Of course, they still owe the past rent, but they cannot be evicted for it. So what we're looking at is trying to put some money into the landlord's hands, but at the same time helping some of our tenants from being evicted.
I understand. Okay, thank you. You've answered my question.
You're so welcome.
Thank you, Mark, for that question. I do see
Hello?
that Lorena, she
Yeah.
has her microphone off. Go ahead, Lorena.
Yeah, this is Teddy Danielle. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. So my question is, can the landlord initiate the contact with the agencies for the clients that behind it? Does it have to be the client?
So that's a great question, Teddy. It is a client-initiated process.
Okay.
However, one of the things that we're trying to do by having this workshop today is to really connect and reach out to as many of our landlords as possible.
Right.
So our landlords can help us to not only understand their responsibilities and rights, but they can also help us to get the word out to their tenants that
Right.
fall into this situation. So the landlord does not apply for this funding. However, the landlords are very invited and encouraged to reach out to their tenants that are behind. And you already know, if you already know, especially that they have COVID reasons for being behind, to reach out and share this information with them and make sure that they apply.
Right, got it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Let's see, Danielle.
You're welcome.
I don't see anybody else that has their microphone off, and there's nothing in the chat right now. I just want to call one last time because we do have time before we end for more questions. So I do encourage anybody that if you have any questions, no question is a dumb question. We have the right people from the city and then also from the apartment association still on the line to answer any questions you guys may have. So just going once, going twice type of thing. Daniela, did you have anything else to add?
I don't. I'm just very excited that our landlords are on board. We value you and we appreciate all that you do here in Pomona. And so thank you for being here.
I believe Kathy Tessier, I see you raising your hand. Okay, go ahead and enable your audio. Perfect.
Yes, thank you very much. One of the things through this process over the last, 6 months at least, being a part of the mayor's task force, et cetera, one of the themes I keep bringing up, and I'll bring it up again, is the necessity for developing a landlord method of connecting with each other. Some sort of communication ability. So the city, if they need to get word out to the landlords about some new program or some new requirement, it's a one-shot hit for maybe 100 of us versus trying to contact people on an individual basis. I was wondering what the progress, or maybe you could tell us what the progress is for maybe trying to achieve that, or perhaps some of the landlords on this call would have an idea of how that could be done.
May I address
Thank you.
that, Danielle? And actually, Kathy, thank you so much for your input. And I just want to point out that today is really taking place because we did have those landlords that stepped forward, and Kathy was one of them that said, hey, you know, we are a business that is being overlooked, and there are resources out there, and many landlords don't know what's out there, and you know, we would like to connect. And so thank you, Kathy, for bringing your concerns to the table, and specifically it was the Economic Development Committee through Pomona's Promise, and that's why we're having the workshop today to address those concerns and those needs. And actually, I'll go ahead and segue into our next portion of the agenda, and that is the outreach. So what does it look like? So where do we go from here? So knowing what we know now, knowing that there's a need, and then also kind of building this network, how do we move forward? And so at this time, I would like to let all of you know that through Pomona's Promise Economic Development Committee, we will take the charge and we will take the lead in being that liaison between the city and also, you know, the California and our governments that release information pertaining to landlords. So we want to build a network. If you guys are interested in building this network, please email us at info@pomonachamber.org. We will add you to our email list, and as resources become available, as more meetings take place, we will inform you on whatever is going on. Also, we want to hear from you. There are approximately 34 people on the call today. We did send out over 600 invites for landlords to attend. And for whatever reason they're not able to today, I encourage you, those that are on here, to reach out to your fellow landlords and say, hey, you know, join this network, because it's going to be something that is going to be very beneficial in the long run. So again, if you guys would like to be part of it, go ahead and email us at info@pomonachamber.org. Myself, along with Hector, we are the co-chairs of that committee, and we will be the ones to form this, you know, alliance, to form this committee, to be that liaison between the landlords and the city and other governmental agencies. So I'm excited about that. And again, thank you all for your participation. And most of all, thank you, landlords, for attending today and asking the important questions and really wanting to understand what's going on. You know, I do see in the chat, I apologize, I want to go back before I turn it over to Benita. Sandra Jacob does have a question, says, what is the name of this program offered? So I believe you're asking if you want to go ahead and disable or enable your audio, Sandra. I just want to make sure we're asking the right question. In program, do you mean the program that Danielle and Beverly spoke about, or was it the one that Dan spoke about? And Stephanie Campbell, you have a question. So Sandra, I don't hear or see that you're responding. Okay, so she doesn't have audio at this time. So if you can just put in the chat what program specifically, and then we'll go ahead and address your question. In the meantime, Stephanie, can you go ahead and
Sure.
ask your
Okay,
question?
so over the last couple of weeks, I've learned a lot about the rental assistance relief programs that are available for tenants, and I don't really know much about what is being done to help landlords, which is why I, wanted to attend this workshop. But I'm wondering, does the apartment association lobby or interface with banks in any way to get more favorable terms? So that they won't lose their properties if their tenants aren't able to, keep up with enough payments so that the landlords are able to meet their obligations with the banks. I'm wondering if the apartment association, is in that kind of dialogue to help apartment owners.
Yeah, we've been in dialogue with our elected officials on it, particularly at the federal level, working through our affiliate, the National Apartment Association. But we haven't really been working with the banking lobbyists directly on this. They far outweigh us in terms of funding and resources, and so it's been very difficult to really crack that nut. And so, but we continue to push things in Washington, D.C. There's only so much we could do at the state and local level because as I mentioned during my presentation, it's the federal government that controls banks, and so only the federal government could move those purse strings for us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, for your question, and thank you, Dan, for the response. Okay, so Sam, going back to Sandra's question, she said, what was the program called? And she meant the one for the 25% assistance program. Danielle?
We're simply calling it City of Pomona's Emergency Rental Assistance Program.
And can you just let everybody know, for those that may have missed it, when that will be released, when they can apply?
It will be released Monday, October 26th at 8 a.m.
And the information will be on the Pomona website?
It will be on our website, as well as we will be distributing it. Actually, there's a canvassing effort on the 24th, Saturday the 24th. The Mayor's COVID Action Committee Subcommittee Outreach will be distributing information out into the community in some of our hardest to reach areas as far as getting the word out. And so we'll be going out to those areas, passing out flyers, as well as collaborating with all of our community partners to get the word out. So there'll be a massive push to get this information out into the community.
Very good. Thank you, Daniela. I also want to make mention that the Pomona Chamber, we will also have the links on our website, as well as sending it out to our recipients on our email campaigns. So thank you. Thank you all for your questions. So I don't see anything else in the chat, and I don't see anybody's microphone enabled. Bonita, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. One of the things I did want to mention was we get this question a lot, so I figured I would just answer it before it was asked. A lot of times we're asked what about immigration status, and we wanted to make sure that people understand that for this round of funding, that immigration status is not a question, and that it's not something that we'll ask or be requiring any information regarding it. So that's not a deterrent. And I think the last time around that became a deterrent, the last time we had this this assistance program. And so I wanted to clarify that. So if somebody asks you as kind of now ambassadors for the program, that the answer to the question is there's not there's not a question on the documentation. And then also, just to kind of piggyback off of the whole network, you know, as the city, I always say we represent pretty much all sides of the equation when it comes to housing. And we work with, through our housing authority, we work with, you know, both landlords and tenants. And we want to make sure that that you have a voice. And so what I would ask is, I'm going to leave my email address. And if you have any questions or concerns, or if you want to be, as Monique said, please, we can send something out to have a sign up that you're interested in becoming part of a network. And we may start off small, but I'm sure each of you know somebody who maybe isn't on this call that we can reach out to, and then see how best we can support you. Again, that's why we teamed up with the Chamber of Commerce, because we're not necessarily in the business of of doing the mixers and that type of thing, but the chamber is, but we are in the business of helping our community, and we are in the business of creating a strength in the community to come out of this COVID era hopefully stronger.
I agree. Thank you. Yes, Kathy?
I have one more question, if I could dovetail on that.
Absolutely.
So are you suggesting that we develop a centralized gathering point for emails and phone numbers, for instance, of landlords that want to join in for periodic? I mean, I'm even dreaming of like a monthly meeting, a Zoom meeting monthly, and being able to give suggestions and have people from, like, for instance, the police department attend one of them, and the fire department and all these other entities, We used to do that in, Mark remembers, in Southwest Pomona. We called it Pomona Southwest Council. Met once a month at a restaurant. There were about 30 of us. We got the landlords to finally come, and it made a big difference. So
Yes.
are you going to put that out to us as to what person or email we contact with our information?
What I would imagine is that Monique will do a follow-up. Everyone on this call, we have an email address for, so we can do a follow-up, and or you can contact either myself or Monique and say, yes, I'd like to be part of this network, and that we will gather that information. And what I can see happening is we may put out like a survey asking what types of topics are you interested in, and then that way we can move forward to get speakers on those, and then also to be able to have a way that I can imagine that from now through the first quarter of next year and on, there's going to be a lot of information. I mean, just whatever's passed today or whenever as part of the HEROES Act. As part of that, I know that rental and housing is part of that conversation. So we want to be able to make sure that information gets out to people, and this is the beginning of that conversation, so that you can give us information and we can pass information out to you in a timely way.
Thank you.
I also want to call to your guys' attention, George, from the City of Pomona. We've actually been collaborating together, and the reason why you guys received this information to attend the workshop is through the City of Pomona and the list that they had put together for the landlords. And so we will send out like a mass emailer the same way we did for this workshop, just letting everybody know, when we're going to have the meetings. As I mentioned, we are thinking that it's going to be part of Pomona's Promise Economic Development Committee, but a subcommittee. That seems to be what makes sense. And so we just wanted to make sure, number one, that there was that need, and obviously there is that need, and number two, are there participants? So as long as we have the need and the participants, we're more than happy to move forward. I see that Vincent Ochoa, you have your microphone off.
Oh, yeah. Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
Approximately April, I had scheduled windows to be in a 20-unit apartment building, and I had one tenant that did not allow me to go into her to make the installation. So as a result, we didn't go in. He was claiming harassment. In addition, I think leaving the water on because I've got a huge bill. So I don't know how to address the situation where I was trying to make an improvement and trying to take care of a problem with a high utility bill. Does anybody have any suggestions?
Yeah, that would have, to me, from the for those, I mean, that you have some people on this call who have been doing this a long time. So maybe if you put your email address in the chat, and maybe we can have somebody reach out to you and just do a follow-up. I'm not a landlord. Actually, I'm a landlord, but from the city's perspective, we actually have a property manager that does our oversight.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for you.
Thank you for your question, Vincent. Let's see. I don't see that anybody else has any more questions, and there's nothing in the chat box. I would like to just go ahead and do one more I'll call for those of you that would like to ask a question. Dan, you're still there, correct? So at this time, I would just like to give those who presented an opportunity to say any last bit information on your organization or any programs that you run. Just kind of close out here.
Did you want me to say something?
Oh yeah, if you'd like to, if you have anything to share, just
Sure.
last closing comments.
Yeah, I know. Thank you for that, and thank you for allowing me to participate. I just think it's incredible what the city is doing to try to get a group of rental property owners in the city together and help provide them resources. There aren't enough communities that recognize the value and importance of people that are actually making investments in our communities and trying to house their fellow neighbors. And so this is, groups like this are very important. It's very important that people and some of the landlords on this call take an active involvement in this and take the city up on its offer to continue this dialogue. And again, I want to make a plug to please try to associate with an apartment association so you can get important information that you need. We encounter some of these questions all the time, and we have operational advisors to assist you. We have tons of legal forms and notices that you can use in your day-to-day operations, and we put out tons of information by email and in a monthly magazine that's 120 pages long, including vendor recommendations and lots of different things. And Pomona is part of our territory, so you definitely want to consider joining an apartment association, whether it's ours or someone else's. So again, thank you for allowing me to do this, and I'm happy to come back anytime to give further updates or speak on virtually any topic related to rental housing. So again, thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Again, I put up Dan's information here. He is from the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles. So if you guys would like to email him, visit their website or call, there is the information. I believe everybody else has left as far as the presenters go. So that's pretty much it. Bonita, do you have anything else to say?
No, I'm good. Just thank you so much for taking your time out, and look forward to round 2 of this, because I really would like to see this move forward and become plentiful, multiply, because I really feel like we need this, and this is the time, because we need each other to get through the what's coming in 2021.
I agree. Thank you, Bonita. I'd like to thank, number one, the City of Pomona. Thank you guys so much for being a great resource today in this workshop. Also, thank you for the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles, Dan, for this wonderful presentation you put together. We need to all work together, collaborate together, to receive and achieve an overall goal, right? And so I know that this is going to be a great platform for those of you landlords that want to connect and want to get resources. So again, you guys can email us at info@pomonachamber.org. We'll add you to our list, and be looking out for an email once you do let us know you're interested, because we want to get the ball rolling and we want to provide you with whatever information we have as soon as possible. Again, the Pomona Chamber of Commerce thanks you guys for attending today. We appreciate you guys, and we will see you at another event. Have a great day, and talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.